So, in 2019, the company behind Fallout New Vegas and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2 made an open world RPG space shooter, one that had heavy inspiration from Bethesda's RPGs and a dystopian space colony the equivalent of North Korea. What could go wrong? I'm here to answer that and find out, is this game still worth playing in 2025? I'll dive into the story, world, the systems within the game, and what did and didn't work. We're in 2025 now, and Now the Worlds 2 is right around the corner. They aim to be the first $80 game amongst main consoles like PC or Xbox or PlayStation, but they walked that back pretty quickly. And I heard Maddie Plays loosely say in a video that if Avowed is Obsidian Skyrim, then the Outer Worlds is their Fallout. So I decided to give it a try. And I also had the itch to play a space shooter. Mass Effect is dead, Destiny 2 was dead to me, and Starfield just isn't scratching that itch currently. And I will get more into Starfield later, as this game is eerily similar in my opinion, and that's coming from someone who actually did enjoy Starfield. So I wanted to run this game before I tried the second one, and I honestly enjoyed my time. I think the biggest selling point with this game is the humor. There is humor throughout the entire story, and I honestly am not one to usually like humor in video games too much. Like, I usually don't find them too funny, but the dry humor in this game actually was pretty good. Like, Avowed's humor was actually pretty bad. Like, I liked a lot of the systems within Avowed, and I liked the game. It was a solid like 7 out of 10, but it was not funny, and it was cringe a lot. Like, there was a lot of cringe in that game, but this wasn't really like that at all. This was completely different. And even though I enjoyed Avowed when I first played it, this honestly made me look at Avowed in a different light. Like, I think they took a step back in some parts of the game. Like, I think Avowed was obviously a newer, it felt more like a AAA style game almost, but there are some areas I think they took a step back in, and humor was definitely one of them. And beforehand, I completely expected the 6-year-old game to be worse, but it was actually kind of better. And now that I've mentioned it, let's actually get into the story. So this is very similar to Fallout. I would say imagine Fallout and Starfield had a child that didn't get a lot of love. That's what this game essentially is. And it's weird to say that because Starfield obviously came after this game. So you can't really say this game took inspiration from Starfield when it came out beforehand, but it really did feel like that. It was like a mashup of Fallout and Starfield together. And just like Fallout 4, you wake up in the future from a deep sleep. And specifically, you were in a deep cryosleep on a spaceship. It's been decades, and this crazy scientist recruits you to save the Halcyon colony. Essentially, just imagine North Korea, but in space. And just like North Korea, the debt you accumulate in your lifetime, if it is not covered, it transfers to your family members and goes generations. Like, your grandchildren could literally be forced to work off your debt if you don't pay it off. They're even responsible for covering your funeral costs. And this corporation, the board, literally freezes people to cut costs instead of feeding them, which is why you wake up on this ship. You were put to sleep on this ship to help them save money, but now you were awakened by this crazy scientist to help overthrow the board. And this really is an open world. You can travel across multiple planets, and I found the traveling to be much easier in this game than Starfield. Obviously, you can't actually manually fly around your spaceship, but this was simple. And you have your classic factions, there's perk systems, a leveling system. You can forage for parts and food to upgrade your guns and your healing buff. But overall, this game was not a AAA game. Obsidian was not a AAA studio at the time of making this game, so these systems were not that deep. They were pretty simple. But now being under Microsoft, the second highest evaluated company in the world, they have a lot more money to spend. So my expectations for this game compared to the second will be very different. And a lot of the comparisons I make in this game, although I will compare them to similar games, don't take those too seriously. I'm just comparing it to a similar game. Obviously, the budget behind a Bethesda game or other RPGs is going to be much higher than what this was. Even though Tim Kaine, the co-director and creator, was a part of both this and Fallout New Vegas. But that was a long time ago. And like I mentioned, the base perk system was pretty generic. It provided basic buffs, but this was one part of the game that really didn't give you too much customization. The buffs were pretty generic, and I really didn't feel like there were enough options in it, which was completely unlike the leveling system, which did give you a lot of options to choose from. This was very well done. So you could pretty much upgrade your stats to a certain point. Like you could upgrade a category up to around 50, but then once you got up to 50, but once it was up to that threshold, then you could upgrade the individual stats within that. For instance, I could upgrade my character's gun skills, but then once I got to a certain level, I could upgrade the type of gun, like long range, short range, things like that. And this customization was nice. I came into this game wanting to run a gun, and I was able to do that. It wasn't like I had to level up other areas to be able to level up my gun skill. I could immediately put all of my points into that if I wanted to. And then once I got to a certain threshold, I could put all of those points into individual gun stats, like long range weapons. And I just loved every part of this. Like, you could literally do a zero intelligence run and your character would crash into another planet on the final mission. That's literally an option in the game. And that mixed in with the story overall was my favorite part of this game. The humor in this is what makes this game so unique. Like, there was this moment where I was literally breaking into the board's main office and I was trying to sneak in past security. And when the desk clerk started questioning why I didn't have my security badge with me because I was pretending to work for the board, I used one of the skill checks based off my stats and I said, hey, let's just skip this altogether. Let's save each other some time here. And obviously in any other situation, that would never work. But this security guard is like, yeah, that was actually my idea. I was going to say that before you. And then you argue about whose idea it originally was. Even though it makes zero sense why I'd be able to do that in the highest clearance of the biggest building in the game. But there were just little bits of humor sprinkled into the story that was just really good. And I do want to say I haven't played the DLCs yet, but I've heard those are very good, but they're going to be in the backlog for a little while. And you also get freedom with the choices. I've seen others disagree about this, but I like the freedom you get. There are moments where they kind of force you to help certain people or make certain decisions, but overall, I felt like you got a lot of freedom with your choices. Like, the opening quest line forces you to make difficult decisions immediately, where you have to decide between helping two different people. And there isn't an option to help both, like to do an extra mission to make sure that you can help both. Like, there's no way around it. You have to choose one of the two parties. And it's a serious decision because the other party who doesn't get your help faces serious consequence. And it's not just that one person, but it's a person responsible for an entire town. And I ended up going against this main faction and I went back there. They were disgruntled that I didn't help them and I wiped them out. And I essentially didn't have to deal with that faction the rest of the game. Like, there was no option to. All the quest lines, everything else was gone. And another part of the game I liked beyond customization and humor was the gunplay. It was really smooth. Like, there are FPSs out there that have far worse gunplay than what this was. It was fluid and being able to use all sorts of different weapons was really fun. This flamethrower was my favorite though, as you can tell from the clips. I used it all the time. And as you can also notice from these clips, I am playing on normal. I have played all the difficulties. I felt like easy was too easy. Hard I enjoyed, but I felt like some of the enemies were too spongy. Like, the human enemies were not too spongy. But the other animals you would run into, they would just become sponges on hard, and I just didn't feel like dealing with it. Plus, playing on normal was the best choice for me because I kind of wanted to get to this game quickly before the second one came out. And as someone who used to 100% and platinum everything, who used to go around collecting every bit of detail, playing this on normal and flying through was actually pretty refreshing. I didn't have to worry about, is this side quest going to actually add to the story or create its own story, or is it just going to be a simple go collect this for me while I'm just an errand boy? And the companions in this game overall were okay. Parvati was by far the best and was a very unique character. The others were okay, some of them weren't great, but I have heard that the DLC expands on the companions and helps give them more depth. Another thing I liked was the perk trade-off with the flaw system. When certain conditions were met, like taking damage from this race over and over, you were offered an opportunity to take this as a flaw, where you will take more damage from now on from this group of enemies, but you get an extra perk point. And to me, there were some trades that weren't worth it, but most of them were. So let's go over some of the things I actually didn't like. So since this wasn't a AAA game, things like copy and pasting enemies and areas wasn't really that bad. And while I did enjoy the story itself, I wish there was a little more setup in the beginning. Like, by the end, they fully explained what's going on, and I really liked the humor throughout it, but I had a hard time caring sometimes. Like, why am I helping the scientists? Why am I not just helping the colony? Like, besides being told these people are bad, we're good, it would have been nice to understand the story more in the beginning. And while the opening was really funny, some parts of it just felt a little hollow. A lot of the information that you learned finally at the end should have been drip-fed a little more throughout the story. But overall, I still think this is worth playing. I think it's estimated to take around 11 to 12 hours to complete the main storyline. And if you already have Game Pass, you can just download it and finish it pretty quickly. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I plan on doing Fallout New Vegas next, one of their older titles, but by far the most popular. So we'll see how that holds up. And if you want more retro reviews or help finding games, check out my channel. Peace.